Morning, Nancy. Are we ready?
I was just about to tell you that we are now live from council chambers. If I can start with the emergency response script, and then I will turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. So before we begin, I will go over the emergency response plan for this room. In an emergency, everyone must evacuate through the nearest safe exit. Those seated in the gallery will take direction from security, and council will take direction from the meeting clerk to evacuate. After evacuating the room, please proceed to a stairwell, take the stairs to ground level, and evacuate the building through the doors marked emergency exit and go to the muster point. Do not take an elevator or walk through the city room. Anyone with limited mobility should identify themselves to security or the meeting clerk during an evacuation. And please speak with security or the meeting clerk if you require first aid. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order. At this time, I would like to acknowledge that we meet on the traditional land of Treaty 6 territory and Métis homeland, and acknowledge the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries, such as Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, and Korasu, as well as Métis and Inuit, now settlers from around the world. I will do a roll call of my council colleagues. Councillor Wright,
Good morning.
Councillor Knack,
Good morning.
Councillor Principe,
Good morning.
Councillor Stevenson.
Good morning.
Councillor Paquette is going to be a few minutes late. Councillor Tang,
Good morning.
Councillor Hamilton,
Good morning.
Councillor Rutherford,
Good morning.
Councillor Salvador,
Good morning.
Councillor Cartmel,
Good morning.
Councillor Rice,
Good morning.
Councillor Jans.
Good morning.
All right, so everyone is here. Councillor Hamilton, you want to move the adoption of the agenda, please?
Yes, I will move adoption of the August 15th City Council non-regular meeting with the following changes: the addition of 5.1, the Camrose Casino application verbal report, and the deletion of item 7.1, intergovernmental update verbal report.
Second.
Thank you. So please vote.
Sorry, just question on that.
I'm sorry, is Councillor Tang?
Yeah, why is 7.1 being deleted?
My understanding, just a timing issue because we have two big items. That's my understanding.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, please vote.
Councillor Stevenson, is there further questions?
Were there?
Sorry, I'm just trying to log into eScribe. Was that the one where we were, I don't know if I can ask this. Do we really think that the other two items are going to take that long to the city manager?
I suspect one of them might.
Okay, I will appreciate that since I'm not sure what the update involves, so fine.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Wright?
I was going to ask, rather than deleting it, could we just leave it, and if we have time for it, deal with it?
I think that's a matter of delegation too, the number of people that will be required to attend.
Okay, all right then, thank you.
Yeah, okay. All right, so please vote.
Councillor Rutherford's a yes.
Councillor Stevenson is a yes.
Thank you, Councillor Rutherford and Stevenson. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is.
We will correct that. Councillor Stevenson was here. Yes.
Okay, got it. Thank you. All right, thank you. Any protocol items? I see none. Select items for debate. Who would like to select these two items? Councillor Tang, you want to select the...
I'll do 5.1 and 7.2.
Okay, thank you. None to vote on, not selected for debate. Request to speak, we don't have any. Request for specific time on the agenda, we don't have any. Votes on bylaws, not selected for debate, we don't have any. Reports to be dealt with at a different meeting. Okay, we don't have any. Okay, we ready to go in camera? Oh, sorry, first item is actually public report, sorry. We'll go to first item. Camrose Casino update. Over to administration.
Good morning. We're here to present an update on the Camrose Casino. I'll pass the presentation to Alyssa LaLiberty, Branch Manager, Economic Investment Services.
Thank you, Kim. And with me today is Oliver Green, Industrial Investment Program Manager from our Regional Development Team. Next slide, please. As Kim mentioned, we're here to discuss administration's recommended response to the Alberta Gaming and Liquor Commission regarding the proposal from Capital City Casinos to relocate their casino in Camrose to Edmonton. The relocation of the casino presents an opportunity for Edmonton in terms of investment and an increase in tax base, while also raising concerns about competition and loss of gaming revenue for Edmonton charities. Alberta Gaming and Liquor Commission, or AGLC, received an application from Capital City Casinos to relocate their casino to the City of Edmonton. Part of their review of the application is to engage with the City of Edmonton, and any response provided to AGLC must come via a council resolution. But before we take a closer look at the recommended response, we will provide you with an overview of the site and a bit of background information. The casino development is an 88,000 square foot facility with 498 slot machines and 25 game tables. The proposed location is at 420 Parsons Road in the Ellerslie Industrial Neighborhood, located north of Ellerslie Road. The site is zoned as Ellerslie Business Commercial. Casino and other gaming establishments are a permitted use in this zone. Rezoning of the site to permit this use was approved by Council in April 2021. A development permit has yet to be applied for by Capital City Casinos for this current proposal. As already noted, casinos are a permitted use, and the city would be required to approve a development permit for a permitted use if the application meets all other regulations. Parsons Road in this location is a 3-lane arterial connecting Ellerslie Road to South Edmonton Common.
Next slide, please. This particular development isn't new to the city. In July of 2022, Capital City Casinos applied to relocate their Camrose Casino to 420 Parsons Road in Edmonton. Accompanying the first application was a development permit, which was issued on July 6. In August of the same year, by approval through Council, the Mayor provided a response letter to AGLC. This response letter neither supported or objected to the proposed relocation, but instead outlined concerns regarding AGLC's regulations that would see the casino retain its rural licensing and would prevent Edmonton charities from sharing in the gaming revenue. The letter also outlined that residents of Edmonton were left with a very narrow window following public notice in a local newspaper to respond to the opportunity for feedback. This left many residents unaware or unable to participate in the given time frame. The application was refused by AGLC in November of 2022. In June of 2023, Alberta's gaming regulator upheld the November 2022 decision to not allow the Camrose Casino to relocate to Edmonton. The panel heard from existing operators who testified about significant cannibalization of revenue and concerns about the current oversaturation in the Edmonton market. The panel found that there was a lack of community support for the application and a lack of support from existing casino operators in the Edmonton market, but found that the notice timeframe for response was adequate. In September 2023, the city manager followed up with AGLC, encouraging the province to consider creating a host local government payments model similar to British Columbia. It is city administration's understanding that under such a model, a percentage of casino funding would be remitted to Edmonton charities to ensure they remain whole and not be adversely affected by sharing gaming revenues with rural charities. The province replied that they expect a new policy to be in place in 2024, That should address many of the questions raised by Edmonton Charities during their examination of the Camrose Casino's application to relocate. In July of this year, a second application letter was received, and AGLC provided notice to the city for input by letter dated July 10th. Around the same time, the previous development permit expired on July 6th of 2024. On July 22nd, the interim city manager wrote to AGLC highlighting that the City of Edmonton's position remained the same as the initial application, whereby we do not object to the casino's relocation and that our primary concern is to ensure that the financial support currently provided to Edmonton Charities is not impacted negatively. On July 29th, AGLC replied stating that in March of this past year, AGLC updated the casino terms and conditions and operating guidelines, as well as the Racing Entertainment Center terms and conditions and operating guidelines, following extensive consultation with stakeholders. These changes allowed casinos to apply to relocate outside of their market area. It added additional criteria that a casino must address before moving into the approval process, and an increased notice period to allow for objections to be submitted. The application could not move forward unless the cannibalization rate reaches or exceeds 15% from any one existing gaming facility as determined by AGLC. However, these changes and additional time to hear objections did not alleviate the impact of the license transfer on charitable organizations in Edmonton. On August 2nd, 2024, a notice of the relocation was published in the Edmonton Journal with a deadline for public to submit objections by August 21st of 2024. Any feedback from the city, including whether the city supports or opposes the application, must be received by AGLC by August 2021. For AGLC to provide an operating license, the casino is required to have an approved zoning, which they do, and business license. To date, development permit or business license application has not been received. Next slide, please. From an investment attraction perspective, the City of Edmonton supports this business locating here, as it would create construction jobs during the development stage, tourism and hospitality jobs, event planning jobs, in addition to casino jobs, as well as positive direct and indirect and induced revenue from the area and an increase in tax base for the city. However, there are some concerns with the proposed relocation from Edmonton residents, businesses, and charities. First, other existing casino operators in the city may also have concerns about added competition for patron visits affecting revenues. AGL refers to this as realignment of gaming revenue in the local market. Second, there are concerns about the redistribution of gaming revenue to rural charities outside of Edmonton. This is because of a relocation. If the relocation were to be approved by AGLC, the casino would retain its rural license. According to AGLC, rural charities would see an increase of more than 50% in charity pool payments, while Edmonton urban charities are expected to see a decrease of 5% in charity pool payments, and Host First Nation charities are expected to see a decrease in 2% in charity payments. Third, there would be additional public concerns. However, the extent of public engagement with this project is currently unknown. As a casino is a permitted use, there is no requirement for public consultation during the development permit application review process. AGLC requires formal community feedback as part of the AGLC licensing approval process. However, city administration is not privy to any feedback received for this application. Next slide, please.
For AGLC to provide an operating license, the casino is required to have approved zoning and a business license. Next steps for capital city casinos would involve applying for a new development permit, building permit, and would need to submit a business license application. At this time, these have not been submitted to the city. Next step for the city, should council agree, would be to make a council resolution to provide a response to AGLC regarding the casino relocation. The response must be provided by August 21st, 2024. Similar to the 2022 response, administration has prepared a draft letter for the mayor to send on behalf of council to AGLC that neither supports or opposes the relocation application, but outlines key impacts and issues of the proposed relocation that were mentioned on the previous slide. Should council wish to submit a letter which opposes the relocation, given the permitted use of the parcel, this could impact the city's reputation to attract future business investment. Members of the public can also submit objections to AGLC in writing until August 21st, 2022. AGLC will consider the feedback they receive from the public and impacted parties during their licensing process. Thank you, and we'd be pleased to answer any questions you may have.
For clarity, 7.1 was able to be deleted from the agenda. Administration was able to confirm that it was appropriate to have this conversation in public. If something arises, legal services can flag for when or if we need to move into public or into private, sorry.
Well, thank you for the presentation. We'll open for questions from council colleagues. Councillor Tang, you exempted this. Would you like to start?
Sure. I have some questions, but I'm also happy to share a bit of perspective from my end as the ward councillor that has this address.
Yeah, please do.
Of course, I think many of you have been receiving emails from your residents, as have I, for quite some time. I think much of the concerns, like as administration said, hasn't really been resolved from the last time. I have written a letter, and this letter is public on my website to AGLC outlining a number of issues, some of which have been mentioned here, but I have some added concern around inadequate infrastructure funding required to ensure something of this scale would be successful at this location. And I'm happy to speak to that if there's questions about that. And also for full transparency, myself and DCM Petron, we did meet with the casino and so we did hear that perspective as well. And in fact, I will say this conversation, there has been many perspectives that we've listened to and took into consideration. So my position doesn't come lightly, and it has was informed by lots of different kinds of information. So that's where I am, and I've shared that letter with all of you, so you all know where I stand. I guess some questions to administration. For that regulation change in July 29th, you had mentioned, can you just say that again? Like, that's something that was different, correct, in the previous application, and this is a new condition?
That's correct. Let me just go back here. Sorry, I'm not, oh, there we go, on July 29th. So AGLC replied stating that in March of this year, AGLC updated the casino terms and conditions and operating guidelines, as well as the racing entertainment center terms and conditions. Following extensive consultation with stakeholders, these changes allowed casinos to apply to relocate outside of their market area, add additional criteria that a casino must address before moving forward in the approval process. We don't know what that criteria is.
Okay, that was my question.
And an increased notice period to allow for objections to be submitted, and the application cannot move forward unless a cannibalization rate reaches or exceeds 15% from any one existing gaming facility as determined by AGLC.
How would they determine that cannibalization rate?
So it would be 15% of existing gaming facility. So if they could prove that a gaming facility would lose 15% of their revenue, then the application wouldn't be able to move forward to the second stage. The application has moved forward to the second stage, so the province has reviewed that at this point.
So presumably they feel that the cannibalization rate is adequate to allow for another. Is that what we're hearing from existing operators? Or do we know?
We have the information that's the data available from AGLC in terms of the modeling that they have done that identifies the Edmonton facilities would have a loss of 5%, First Nations 2%.
Right.
And just clarity, that's charities. So it didn't include the facility breakdown, just the charity breakdown. So there's a difference between the 15% for the individual gaming.
The operators.
Exactly.
Yeah. Other
and the
operators.
5% and the 2% for the charities.
Right, and I think the website did say that there is a decrease in revenue, perhaps not 15%. And I'll just say I have not in conversations with some of the operators, that is not their perspective. So I'll just share that. And has the, I guess, engagement period extended according to that new regulation compared to 2 years ago?
I believe the notice period is about the same. So this
Okay.
year, notice was given on August 2nd and closes August 21st. So it's about the same
So it's
time
about
period.
the same,
Yeah.
even though they were supposed to give it more time. Okay, so noted. I'm out of time. I'll come back and interested to hear what my colleagues have to say.
Thank you, Councillor Tang. Councillor Wright.
Thank you very much. I'm just wondering, was that analysis done prior to the new casino Bear Hills opening just south of the city?
Are you talking about AGLC's analysis?
Yeah.
That we wouldn't know unless Kim or Oliver.
Yeah, so I know that AGLC received this application in the spring of this year for this casino.
Okay.
And so their analysis would have been since then, the spring, so January, February of this year.
Their analysis would have been before, so, okay.
Yes,
So
that's
it would have been before the opening of this new one?
So
'Cause I think that
yes,
was-
that's correct. Yep.
Okay. And then the pooling of funds that are distributed, is that done per operator or is it done per geographical area? So I think we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 within the city of Edmonton. So do they all pool their funds together?
That's correct. So we have an urban framework, or urban pool. We have a rural pool, and we have a First Nation pool. So the First Nation pool goes together, the urban pool goes together in all urbans, and then the rural go all together as rurals.
Okay, and so is St. Albert and Century Mile out by the airport, are they considered part of the urban pool or are they the rural?
That's a good question. We'd have to take it back and report back.
Okay, because I am wondering how AGLC actually did determine, especially if Councillor Tang is hearing from the operators themselves, that they would be losing money.
Just jumping in here, we do have the answer. St. Albert and Century Mile are rural.
So those wouldn't be taken into account. And then, of course, then the River Cree and Beaver Hills is part of the Indigenous.
First Nation,
Yeah,
that's
First
correct.
Nations, okay. Okay, so then there's 5 right now that would be pooled, and then, but so then if the new casino is maintaining their rural status, they still remain part of the rural pooling, right?
That's correct. So they would be operating in our market. They would take our market share, but they would still be operating as a rural casino. And so their share to the charities would go to the rural charities. And so the decrease in 5% and 2% is from our market going away from our casinos to this rural casino.
Okay. But it would then be combined with the St. Albert and Century Mile. Okay. I just wondering, the loss of business or whatever.
I'll just share, Councillor Wright. I learned from AGLC that the City of Calgary has a similar model in terms of a rural licensed casino within the municipality that goes to rural casinos, and then they have the urban casinos.
And do you know how long ago that was and what sort of impact it has had on those casinos and the funding model?
I couldn't speak to the impact, but it's my understanding that that has been there since early 2000. So
Okay, thank you.
20-ish years.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Principe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I heard you mention that up to 50%, so they're allowed to retain up to 50%. There was a 50% in there that would come back, I believe, to urban pool.
Yeah, so rural charities would see an increase of more than 50 in charity pool payments.
Oh, okay.
And we don't know what that more is. This was provided by AGLC, that it's more than 50.
Okay, but a percentage of that would be coming back to the urban pool. Is that correct?
That's to the rural charities. That's the rural pool.
Right. No, the more than 50%, but before that, you had said a percentage of that would go to Edmonton prior to more than 50%.
Yeah, so how they're looking at it says
Yeah.
that the increase would be more than 50% to the rural pool charity, while Edmonton charities are expected to see a decrease in 5% to their charity pool.
Right, right. But sorry, prior to that, you had said, I believe I heard you say something to the effect that a percentage would go back to the urban prior to the more than 50% and less than like the in you know what, I'll follow up with you on that after.
Okay, not a problem.
But yeah, but I also wanted to ask about this. So the city is required to approve because it's been rezoned. Would they be required to approve if everything
Yeah, so this
lines up?
this is a permitted use, and so there's no reason. Now, of course, we haven't received their development permit application to date. However, if there are no concerns with the application, it's a permitted use, so we would be approving this.
Right. And is there anything, when this was approved in April of 2021, the rezoning, was it with the intention of it being a casino?
From our records, it was just submitted under a consultant to rezone this application at that time.
Councillor Principe, I'll just add that the rezoning was creating a new zone, the Ellerslie Business Commercial Zone, and it accounted for a range of development uses, permitted uses, casino or major indoor entertainment limited to a casino being one of them.
Right, okay. Okay, yeah, I'll just follow up with you on the other thing later. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Principe. Councillor Cardinal.
Thank you. So all these percentages and numbers, these are estimates, presumably coming out of analysis. Do we know if would there be a reconciliation, or is there any process to test those assumptions and then adjust percentages and rates going forward? Has there been a process suggested on that?
Not that we're aware of at this point. This analysis was done by the province and then publicly shared on their website, but we don't have any information behind the scenes.
So that might be something we could suggest if this goes forward. The Century Mile, does it not have a special arrangement where at least some of its money goes directly to the horsemen, goes directly to the racehorse community, whose formal name I'm forgetting?
We don't have information on that, but we can take that back and report back.
Pretty sure they do, because it was a transfer of the agreement from the Northlands racetrack out to the Century Mile racetrack, and there was a special consideration there for the horsemen getting some of that money, because it's a racing parlor more than it is a gaming casino, is the thinking. That's my recollection anyway. And then last question, do we have a sense of what the impact would be in terms of numbers of employees, how many people would be employed by this place, that kind of thing, some of the potential positive effects of a new facility on Parsons Road?
We don't have that available today. A large amount would be in the construction side, more so than the actual operations side, but we can get those numbers.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cardinal. Can you take the chair, please?
I have the chair.
Thank you. I have a number of concerns about this, and I'll start with, I know you talk about economic growth opportunities, but I want to focus on, like, Edmonton already faces disproportional impact of social issues, whether it's mental health issues, addictions issues, people losing homes because of addictions, gambling addictions. So recognizing that we are impacted disproportionately by the social issues, adding other casino is going to, add to those social issues. So why would we not factor that into our analysis?
So, Mr. Mayor, those are important considerations. I think in this situation, given that the land is zoned to allow for a casino, from a land use perspective and permitting, it would be permitted. And AGLC, I can't speak to all the things that they would consider in terms of the relocation or approving the relocation with the exception of what we know from the guidelines.
No, I understand land. I'm not questioning the land use. That's permitted use. I'm just talking about like we are required to have our input to AGLC. And why are we not including that aspect into our letter to the AGLC? The social impact of gambling, addictions, and how we are already disproportionately impacted by all these challenges that are caused by social issues.
We can absolutely include that as part of our letter back to AGLC.
Yeah. And I think that will lead to objection to the casino, not a neutral position. I don't agree with a neutral position. I think we need to object. Based on that. Also, do we know what the value of 5% is in dollar terms? Like, are we talking about $10 million, $5 million, $20 million of loss to our charities?
Yeah, we don't know that at this point, but we can look into it.
Yeah, because that will be like if it's a few $100,000, it's easy to absorb, but it's going to be millions of dollars. Our charities are already struggling, and they come to us for support, and they'll be coming to us for more support if that revenue is lost. I think that's another reason that it's going to. We will have to fill that gap through property tax increases. I think that's another reason that we should be objecting to this. The impact on community, like I'm getting emails on this as well, right? So the lack of consultation, like doing this in the middle of summer when council is already says families are on, kids are out of school, families are taking vacation, just giving few weeks of time for consultation is unacceptable. I think if city is doing this, we will be questioning, and why. I think that's another reason I cannot support a neutral position. Like there got to be a reasonable amount of time given to us and to the community to think about and engage with AGLC.
We could include that as a component of the letter as well, in terms of that engagement timeline.
Are there best practices around notices to public? Like how much notice do we give, on a major change like this, right?
Yeah, generally we try to have about three to 4 weeks around a development proposal as an example. We do try to limit some of the engagement on bigger projects within the summer months, or at least a period within the summer months. But it is challenging, in terms of what's happening throughout the year. But we can identify that we haven't seen the engagement period extended as they had committed to, and recognizing the time being during the summer months that it has a community impact.
Yeah, I do have question about the condition of the road infrastructure. They will all come back to that. I'll take the chair back. Sorry, I'll take the chair back.
Return the chair.
Thank you, Councillor Cardwell. Councillor Paquette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just curious about real numbers. So a couple of things that I'm curious about. One, we mentioned the tax uplift, and I'm wondering if we can get the numbers on that. And then the potential loss of dollars to the community. That would be interesting to know. And then, as the mayor alluded to, the cost of infrastructure improvements to accommodate the traffic flow. So do we have those numbers?
So we did a comparison to other casinos in the local area for size. The Yellowhead Casino is the most similar. They are $18 million in assessed value. They bring in roughly $485,000 annually. So that would be a very similar comparison. As far as the infrastructure and as far as the dollars to the community, we would have to take that back and answer.
Okay, so we don't know.
Just give me 1 second. We do have some information on Parsons Road.
I can speak to Parsons Road. Certainly, the widening of Parsons Road and its connection with Ellerslie Road is part of our arterial roadway assessment bylaw. Through the development permit application, we can look at how a requirement of that is part of the access improvements, but a whole-scale upgrade around Ellerslie Road and Parsons Road is needed, and the city does have that along with a number of other roads within the city in terms of priority areas for future upgrades, which are currently unfunded.
And at a high level, the cost to widen Parsons Road from 19th Avenue to Ellerslie Road is $13 million, give or take 20% to 30%. To widen from Ellerslie Road to 91st Road is estimated at $3.5 million, and that's for, give or take 30% to 50%.
Okay, and absent this casino, where would that fall on our priority list of roads to widen?
They weren't funded in the last budget cycle. We did include those priorities in our ask to provincial advocacy for budget. It wasn't funded then either, but they are seen as the priorities. It's Ellerslie Road and Parsons Road, 167, 66th Street, and 215th Street are the three top priorities for arterial roadway improvements.
In the city?
Yes.
Currently, like, they're at the top?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and, but we're not, but in real numbers, we're talking about 5% and all these different numbers, but what does that actually mean?
We don't have the information on what the impact of 5% equals in dollar values. So we'd have to follow up on that.
Okay, so I'm just trying to, and so do we know how much we're deriving from that lot right now in taxes?
I don't know if we have that yet. It's vacant, so it's vacant. Tax being assessed as vacant land as opposed to improved land.
Right.
So we have information based on some of the other casinos that we could use as, I'm not sure that it would be fair to say they would be comparables, but we do have that information.
Right, okay. All right, that's interesting to know. Thank you.
Councillor Paquette, can you move the second round, please?
I move second round.
Second.
Okay. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Councillor Tang?
Yeah, great. Just want to come back to that road analysis that you were just talking about. Expanding a road like this in that report, the arterial road, this would be considered like a growth project, correct?
Yes, it would be.
Where do we prioritize in terms of growth versus renewal? Because I thought we had a $3 billion renewal deficit. So any new funding will go towards renewal, correct?
I think it's a combination of both. As you see the city growing, like, we have to do both. We do have a clear deficit on the renewal side. Arterial roads is one of those where we're, for renewal perspective, is not fully funded.
Yeah, but if we did have funding, it would be, if we did have more infrastructure funding, it would be up there for consideration.
Yes, I would say so. Okay. And to Kim's point, when you look at the ARA and how we're cost sharing and looking at developers to support that, that's part of the equation of where we do need to look at where we do grow too. So.
And in this case, the developers in this basin have met their obligations to the arterial roadway bylaw.
The current developer, you mean? Sorry. Assuming, like, with the consideration of an 80,000 square feet casino?
Yes.
That they have fulfilled their expectation.
So the arterial roadways within this basin, so Ellerslie, Summerside, and the industrial area, the bylaw identifies the responsibility for arterial roadway construction between city obligation and developer obligation.
So they
The developer obligations have been fulfilled. Having said that, when we review a development permit, we would review traffic information, et cetera, to evaluate what improvements or conditions would be appropriate to support the development.
Okay.
So that review would happen once we received an application.
And to the question earlier about like what's the alternative there, it could be all kinds of stuff that goes into a lot that big.
There's a range of uses in the Ellerslie Business Commercial Zone,
Yeah.
yes.
I guess it's a little hard to say because we don't really know what else could be there exactly, but would you anticipate a similar traffic flow and volume as, say, something that would include hotel, potentially conference center, and of course a casino that operates, do they operate 24/7? I don't even know. I don't go to casinos.
Right now, we don't have all of those details, Councillor Tang, and what we know now is it includes the 88,000 square foot facility with the slots and the tables. There's no indication of a hotel conference center, but that could come. But as of right now, that's not part of this current project, and one of the reasons why AGLC is deeming this project to be significantly different from the 2022 application.
And then I understand in a lot of letters that the communities have been writing in, they do reference last year's application, which AGLC deems as 6.7 million lost charitable revenue. Do you have that information too?
I suspect it's in our files.
Okay, and annually, communities, they use 5 million from casino revenue, never mind other types of charitable organizations. Okay, so just want to put that on the record as well. And what did you say was the tax uplift?
So specifically on this location, again, since we don't have all the details of what the project would look like, what we can do is give you a proxy. So similar square footage. So for example, 75,000 square foot casino in Edmonton has approximately 485,000 taxation to the city annually.
And I just did some quick math. The current site is about $10 million in assessed value, which would equate out to about $78,000 a year. So it would increase about $400,000.
Sorry.
The uplift in assessment with this development would increase by $400,000.
So currently it's
At
around
least.
70, but with something on there, it'll be around 400. Okay, got it.
Yep.
Thank you. And for the other casinos in the city, is this one comparable in terms of proximity to residential and commercial areas?
Yes, we have the casino in Belvedere, the Century Casinos, and that's in proximity right across the street to a number of residential properties along Manning Drive. Looking at others, we have the casino in the Ice District, we have Argyle Street, the Pure Canadian Gaming Facility, that's right across the street as well from residential. Starlight Casino is in West Edmonton Mall, so that's an exception. There's residential close, but it's in the mall itself. Yeah.
I'm out of time.
Good, thank you.
I am preparing a motion, so I'll come back.
Got it. No worries. Councillor Rice.
Thank you, Mayor Sohi. So I want to focus on the comparison and between the economic benefits for the city and the impact to the community and also the financial impact as well. So I would like to get some clarification question on that. So I heard from like the economic benefits, this will increase our city's tax base. Also is under the permit use and in that commercial area. So, however, for the impact, so I heard social impact from Mayor Sohi. I would like to ask some financial impact. So the first thing is about the reduced revenue and from our current existing community organizations. So my question is this compared to, because they come into the city and create more competition, that results reduce the revenue from other casinos, or is we only compare this reduce, say, on this casino, and then we will get some revenue, but we will get less revenue and compared to other existing casinos and for the organization. So can you clarify that a little bit more?
Yep, so under the existing regulation with AGLC, they're considered a rural license, and so their funds have to go to the charities for rural, even if they choose that they want their charities to go to urban. And so the economic downturn here of the 5% to Edmonton charities is due to the market share of clients choosing to go to this casino versus other casinos in Edmonton.
So that is from big picture, from market share perspective. So it's not only about this own casino. So that is a big picture impact.
That's correct.
So based on updated regulation, is there any way we could address this reduction and then to get into the points we can make sure the reduction will not be happen? And then if we have this one in the location, is there any possible way could address this?
So there's nothing in the regulation right now, but we can definitely put that in our letter of recommendation for changes to the regulation itself.
So that will take time to change the regulation again, right?
That's correct.
So how long, what's the timeline to make that regulation change?
So the original letter from the City of Edmonton out to AGLC was back in 2022. They advised that they would be making those changes in a year and a half, so we would anticipate it would be a similar timeline.
Okay. Okay, so that's...
Councillor Rice, if I may, I have heard from AGLC that the anticipated decision will be made later this year on this application.
Okay, so that could be impact some change, and to, I assuming just you can correct me, and I assuming this could be bring some like benefit to our city with that change, right?
So if the casino was approved, there would be a decrease of 5%. If the AGLC updated the regulation to make a change that this would be an urban casino, that would benefit our city. So changes to the regulation would be positive.
What time? Okay. So in terms of infrastructure, for the infrastructure, because this is not only, yes, this casino is located in our city, and is that part of the infrastructure cost sharing will come from provincial, and for the roads widening and those type of things?
No, this would be on us as a city to build this.
So, yeah, I heard earlier, and is the share and the responsibility is between the developers and the city, but we will not get any infrastructure support from provincial for this piece.
Councillor Rice, I was just noting that we had included this as an ask in our budget ask to the provincial government.
Okay, thank you. My time is up.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. Councillor Wright.
Thank you very much. So we've talked about the infrastructure for the road widening and that. What about like underground infrastructure? What would be the cost of that? And would that be borne by the developer or by the city?
The site is serviced.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And depending, I guess, on the use, I know when we see rezoning applications and that, we talk about, you know, whether the sewer lines can handle it.
Yes, and any of those type of upgrades would be at the cost of the applicant or the developer or the builder. Yes.
Okay. And then I'm also wondering, you talked about the tax uplift of about I think it was 400,000, if it were a casino. What if it were a conference center or a hotel? Would it be similar uplift, or?
So it would depend on the size of the investment. And so typically we have a CapEx that comes in for an investment. It's the investment size itself that would increase from the $76,000 that we receive annually currently from the site being vacant. So whatever the size of the investment is, that would be the increase of the assessment over time. So for example, if it was a hotel that was valued at $1 million, we would increase that property by $900,000. Rather than the $400,000 for this casino, which is valued at $480,000, as an example.
So we could get double the tax uplift for
Another
type
development.
of-
Yeah,
okay.
it just depends on the size of the development, yes. It could be a gas station, and then we could see an uplift of $100,000, for example. Yeah.
But on that size of a site, it would be more than just a gas station, I would think.
We would hope, yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Pretty glamorous, okay. And then the one thing that just kind of struck me is by having another facility participating, I guess, in the gaming, would that increase the availability? That would increase the number of nonprofits that would be able to benefit from the casino, is that right? Or it would only be the rural community, the rural
Yeah,
nonprofits
just
that would?
the rural, that's correct.
Okay, so how long has the Camrose Casino been closed for?
We don't have that information, if it's closed or open. Yeah, do we know?
Oh, I
We'd
thought
have to follow up on that, Councillor Wright.
Okay, I thought it was closed, but because I'm just wondering, so, so then those rural organizations, if it has been closed, I could do a quick Google search, I guess, then they would have not had that opportunity, okay. Okay, so we could get probably better tax uplift from a different type of commercial property. There's no additional costs. Okay, I'm still going to have to think and see what Councillor Tang's motion is. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Prince Payne.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm fortunate I had my staff go on YouTube and listen earlier to administration's presentation, and I have the wording as to what you said, and maybe you can clarify it for me now, Mr. Green. I believe it was you who had mentioned, it is city administration's understanding that under such a model, a percentage of casino funding would be remitted to Edmonton charities to ensure they remain whole and not be adversely affected by sharing gaming revenues with rural charities. Can you explain that?
Yes, thank you. That's what we had asked for in our original letter to AGLC, but that request went unheard.
Okay, yeah, that's the clarification I wanted on that. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Prince Payne. Councillor Cartmel, can you take the chair, please?
I have the chair.
Thank you. So you said this casino would be of comparable size to one on Yellowhead, right?
That's correct, yes. It's the Yellowhead Century Casino. It's a little bit smaller at 75,000 square feet instead of 88.
Okay. But that site has pretty good access from Yellowhead. I think it's on 149th Street, right?
That's correct, and good visibility as well, yeah.
Right. And does Parsons Road is just, there's no other access. Would there be other access to this site from other than Parsons Road?
No, the direct access would be off of Parsons Road. If you think about the Yellowhead Casino, they are losing their access off of the Yellowhead with the Yellowhead project. However, for this casino, they could come off of Highway 2.
Yeah, but like Yellowhead has a 3-4 lanes each direction. So Parsons Road is only one lane each direction, then turn lanes, right? So
Parsons Road is an arterial road, though. Ultimate design, I believe, contemplated 6 lanes.
yes, but that's the city's obligation. I think this is another example of how urban sprawl is costing a tons of money, right? So so $13 million, that's city's obligation, right?
Potentially, yes. You know, we can look at design and streamlining, making, you know, different incremental improvements to improve the flow of traffic there. But yes, the cost estimates to do a complete expansion, it would be about that much for
Right,
Parsons.
right.
Plus, there's the connection with Ellerslie Road.
Right. When you do your analysis, traffic analysis, if you determine that the casino, if it's approved, generates amount of traffic that requires upgrading, which I think it already does now, but would you put more onus on the developer to contribute to the cost of partial cost of $13 million that is required? Would you make it a condition of a development permit?
We have not done that in the past. We can certainly look at conditioning access improvements, and we can do incremental improvements along Parsons Road to help with turning lanes and things like that. But I think, you know, an entire upgrade of the arterial road would likely be subject to a challenge.
Yeah, I think if it's challenge, maybe it's good challenge, right? Let's see how it goes, right? And I'm just tired of paying through taxpayers' dollars for upgrades to infrastructure that benefits. I know the tax revenue, absolutely $400,000, but that's going to take 15, 20 years to pay off just for the road, not other challenges, right? So I think, so okay, maybe I'll stop here and just have a lot of concerns about this. Okay.
We'll definitely take that away, Mr. Mayor, around the infrastructure opportunities with this application and others in the area.
Okay. All right. I'll go to Councillor Rice, then I'll go to Councillor Tang for the motion. Councillor Rice, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mayor Sarhi. So I also want to get some clarification on the roads infrastructure on Alice Road. So if this location because it's connected with Alice Road. Alice Road right now has big traffic concerns and from south area. So if we approve this reallocate to our city, or is opportunity to make like Alice Road's widening and to address all southwest, because Alice Road right now is the major road for the southwest, rather than to use that to turn to a Parson Road and to turn to Highway 2. So will that opportunity be increased to prioritize this road widening and our residents ask so many years?
So, Councillor Rice, in terms of Council's decisions on capital spending for arterial roads, this application wouldn't be related to that, but do recognize that some portions of Ellerslie Road and the expansion of the road are developer-funded requirements, and some are city-funded requirements. So, in this particular area, the developers have met their obligations. Having said that, we look at opportunities to do incremental improvements where we can in terms of increasing or improving the flow, given the budget and resources that we have to do that. We have identified that this part of Ellerslie Road and Parsons Road are a key priority for arterial roadway improvements as a growth project.
So specifically, why I want to focus on this 103A Street on Alice Road, that is right at this edge of the overpass on Highway 2. And if people take Calgary Trail and come to this location, that means this road's infrastructure improvement. And then from my understanding and also from what I heard from my constituents in Southside, these roads on Alice Road to support and then is not only our city, and I think developer will have their obligation to do it. And I know our city identifies a short term to address Alice Road traffic. But if you look at the map, Alice Road will be the big use and to overpass the Highway 2. So that overpass is part of provincial. So is there opportunity we could work with provincial to really prioritize this roads transportation or roads infrastructure condition improvement?
Yes, absolutely, Councillor Rice. And we did include these opportunities for infrastructure improvements to our ask to the provincial government last year. We can certainly look how we continue that conversation to improve the overall infrastructure onto the west side of Highway 2 or Gateway, sorry, that you've noted as well.
So if this casino and could be the opportunity to prioritize that request and get the funding and from different orders of governments, right?
Potentially. I can't speak to how the other levels of government would prioritize those asks.
Okay, thank you. That's all my question.
Thank you, Councillor Rice. Can you move the additional round, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Please vote. This moved by Councillor Rice and seconded by, I think, Councillor Mack, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
we will correct that, and we have all the votes.
Okay. Okay, please display the votes. That is carried. Okay, Councillor Tang, please go ahead. Move your motion.
Does administration have a motion prepared?
Yeah, we can put it up on the screen for you.
Thank you. Oh, there we go. I move that the mayor, on behalf of City Council, write a letter to the Alberta Gaming, Liquor and Cannabis Commission outlining Council's opposition and objections to the proposed relocation of the Camrose Casino, including concerns regarding community engagement timelines, concerns regarding social issues, and the impact of the license transfer on charitable organizations in Edmonton.
Second.
Happy to introduce. Oh, you're on mute, but
Yeah, sorry. Can you make the introduction, please?
Sure. And can I ask a couple questions after that? Yes, thank you. Yeah, I think I think this conversation, to me at least, we're revisiting this conversation again 2 years later. Much hasn't changed, and that is deeply frustrating to me. When we think about the issues that we have talked about, and for the last 2 years, I've spent disproportionate amount of my time on this particular issue, not just from a ward councillor perspective, but also from an intergovernmental perspective. When I engage with my regional colleagues who fall within the Camrose catchment, when I speak to rural communities as part of Alberta Municipalities Convention, many of them rely on charitable dollars to support many of the social issues in their communities. I feel that this application has done nothing different. There is still a shroud of secrecy around what are some of those criteria required in a relocation. The engagement period is supposed to be prolonged in this instance, and it hasn't been. The issue around the rural-urban charitable revenue, happy to get some confirmation on this, but despite many advocacy from both rural and urban communities through RMA, through Alberta municipalities, nothing has even moved forward. We've also heard that we have, since last time, proposed solutions to the Alberta government and AGLC that has also fallen on deaf ears on the issue of traffic intersection and upgrading of roads to accommodate the volume that will be anticipated from this land being developed, casino or otherwise. Despite this part of the city being a priority for infrastructure upgrade consideration, we haven't seen any movement on that front when it comes to adequate infrastructure funding for municipalities. Once again, since in the last 10 years, the provincial funding for infrastructure for municipalities has dwindled from $454 per person to $154 per person today. That has a direct impact on how we prioritize and fund our infrastructure projects, and this is a prime example of that.
Thank you, Councillor Tang. 2 minutes for introduction, so you can move.
Thank you. Can I just ask a question then?
Yes, you have
to
3
our
minutes.
intergovernmental folks, I don't know if they're online, or if they could be online.
While they come online, you have other questions to administration, otherwise you can go to Councillor Rutherford, you can come back.
This will be my last question, so I can come
Okay.
back.
Okay. Councillor Rutherford, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. So I know when you did your presentation, originally you had talked about concerns with, and I see the interplay with the land use, because for example, we've already permitted this there. So for example, some of the concerns regarding social issues should have been discussed when we permitted that land use as a valid land use consideration, as opposed to now that we've already made that land use decision, right? So I see the social issues around loss to charitable organizations and those pieces, but I just want to get a sense on that point B here in this letter. Like I don't want it to negate or undermine the public hearing process that already happened, and that this is zoned a casino. And so if it was licensed for Edmonton, we wouldn't be having the same issue. It's not that a casino in and of itself is an issue. It's the way that the funding for that that casino is distributed. That's the issue in that letter. I just want to make that clear, that that's the understanding on point B.
That's correct.
Because I know the mayor talked about that other broader thing about, more people getting gambling addictions and those kind of things, but that I don't want, if I'm supporting this motion, I can't support that being in the letter. So just.
So that would be related to B.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the issue.
So that's related to B, so that's what I'm saying. Should I strike B? Or if B stands, is it specific to funding to charitable organizations and some of the pressures that Edmonton charity organizations face, even from rural communities, as opposed to gambling addiction and those kind of things? Because I think it's just too broad, so I'm just trying to see if I need to amend B or if there's consistent understanding of that.
So C, I would say, is the concern around charitable organizations, how much goes to Edmonton charities versus rural charities.
Okay.
And then look for direction from council on B.
I might move to strike B, but I have one more question quickly. And you had mentioned, and I'm concerned about this, that a letter of opposition may have unintended consequences on, we're talking about we just did an industrial action plan. And can you unpack that a little bit more for me of what are some of the potential consequences, being that the rezoning is a casino, and if we oppose this? I'm just trying to get a full eyes wide open of what that decision means.
So Councillor Rutherford, the comment around the reputation of being investment friendly is another way of thinking about it. Is investors are looking for a surety. They're looking for, if I'm going to invest, that certain regulations or certain criteria that are stated are going to be actually fulfilled as they move forward in their investments. So that this situation could call into question that type of a surety. So it's a risk, it's not a certainty. So it's just a flag for you in your considerations around the decision.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'm actually going to move to strike B, and I'm going to add, I guess, C, because if we're reordering them, so it would be I'm going to move to add some sort of language around concerns around the infrastructure investments from the province, and similar to that, in alignment with that Alberta municipalities advocacy, that again highlighting this is an example where we would be using these funds to better enhance this road for economic development, and we cannot because of the current deficit. So I would like to add something, so strike B and add something about, in the letter about that. So I'm moving that.
I will second.
Councillor, while we work on the wording for the latter part, do you want to just put forward the deletion of B and deal with that?
Sure,
Okay.
for sure. If it's cleaner that way, I'll move to delete B.
Second.
Okay, so deleting B, moved by Councillor Rutherford, second by Councillor Rice. So we are talking about deletion of B now. Okay,
So just
we'll focus on that.
So just a quick
Councillor-
introduction.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
So again, just to, based on my questions, I really worry about including B because it's so broad, and we've already given that land. We've said that a casino there as an entity isn't the issue, and so I don't want to start opening up a bunch of things in there, in that letter, that potentially negate again that previous council decision. That's why I'm moving to delete B. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Cartmel? On deletion?
Well, connected to deletion, it is my recollection that we have received advice from third-party consultants in the past about the value of writing letters to the government and expecting that that actually moves the needle. Now, I understand that this is somewhat different because we think we've been invited to offer commentary. But in the past, I have supported motions for letters and then seen the letter and not agreed with the letter. So all of that to say, I wonder if a letter could be drafted coming out of this conversation and then be brought back to council next week where we can actually vote on whether we support the actual letter than rather vague suggestions of what the letter might contain that is open to interpretation.
Councillor Cartmel, we have to, you're right, council's been invited to provide a response by the 21st, so certainly on the 20th agenda, we can include the draft letter.
So I'll give you an example. If the letter is written and effectively puts all of the traffic impacts of Parsons Road and Ellerslie Road, which have been around for several budget cycles, on the back of this developer, or it is implied that if this is going to be supported, it comes with, a multi-million-dollar bill to fix the road. I have real concerns about writing a letter that says that, because I think that's a long, long way from the actual conversation here. So I don't know that I would support the letter. On the other hand, if it suggests, if depending how that's worded, I might. So I'll leave it there. But I guess I'm saying I'm not supporting letters blindly anymore. I want to see the letter first before I put my name to it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Cartmel. Councillor Rice, on the deletion?
No question for the donation, and it's just general question for the main motion.
Okay. Councillor Cartmel, can you take the chair, please? I just have a couple of questions to Councillor Rutherford.
I have the chair.
Thank you. I understand your concern, Councillor Rutherford, you have raised around the broader issue of social issues, right? I understand that we don't want to mingle them into this specific issue, right? Do you think Part C will help us articulate some of the concerns when you lose 5% of the revenue you have more people coming into the city, or you're creating more opportunities for people to gamble in the city. And from my experience, gambling does lead to addictions. Gambling does lead to other social issues. So there'll be more pressure on the charities already that are struggling. So that's so you're adding more to the social pressures and less money to deal with those social pressures. Kick
Yeah,
on
and
charities.
I don't disagree with your stance. I just also come from a very, in this case, governance lens, and that was a decision that was made in April of 2021, from what it sounds like, which was before the last election, so it was a previous council. So most of us here around this table were not privy to that debate. I don't know if I would have supported that rezoning if I was on council at the time with those considerations in mind. But I'm respectful of the fact that that decision was made by council, and that would have been the time in which those kind of considerations were weighed.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe this is to Kim. Is casinos the only use, or is what's a broad range of uses, and casino is only one of them? Was it referenced? Casino was referenced in the zoning?
Yes, so it's a broad range of uses, casino being one of them. The report, the planning report attached to the bylaw did highlight the opportunity for casino. I can't recollect the discussion at council, apologies, but yeah, it could have been a land use consideration that council contemplated through that discussion.
But the applicant at that time did not say we're going to build a casino, right?
Correct. It's around the range of development opportunities.
More broad conversation. Okay, all right, no worries. Thank you so much. I will take the chair back and go to Councillor Principe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question isn't on the motion, it's on the taxation. Can I ask that question, or should we wait?
Let's focus on deletion, then you can come back to the main.
Yeah, I'll just come back then.
Okay. All right, so we have a deletion on the floor to delete B. All right, so anyone to speak to it? Councillor Cardinal, can you take the chair, please? I'm just going to make a few comments.
I have the chair.
Thank you so much. I know while I understand Councillor Rutherford's intent and the zoning that was approved in April 2021, but I do want to stress that Edmonton is impacted disproportionately more than any community in maybe the majority of compared to majority of the communities in Alberta. The impact of the disintegration of the social infrastructure, and we have more social problems compared to other cities. And we continue to add, we continue to do things or that actually are adding to that. And in this case, a rural community losing revenue, instead of province stepping in to provide the revenue to those communities, is going to add to those challenges by having another casino opened in our city. Right? So that is my issue, that, we already have challenges, we are creating more challenges, and other communities are, shifting their problems onto us. We saw that in the case of Leduc, we saw that in the case of other cities, right? Like other communities. So I'm just want to make that point. That's maybe, I don't know if it's going to pass or not, or that's my intent. I'll stop here and go to take the chair back. Goes to Councillor Rutherford to close.
Return the chair.
Just quickly, I again, passionately agree with the mayor on many of the points that they made. I just want to highlight, though, that, as somebody that worked in two neighboring rural municipalities, Strathcona County and in the Tri-region, Parkland County, Stony Plains, Spruce Grove area, one of the reasons that so many of the issues come to Edmonton is because those organizations that are trying to do good work in those communities don't have the funding. And I'm not arguing that point C in the original motion isn't still absolutely valid, and I would want to see, you know, my ideal situation is 15% or whatever of those revenues stay within Edmonton, the urban license, and that's what's advocated for, absolutely. But I think that it's just too complex of an interplay around the social issues to summarize in a way that we would all collectively agree as council. And I want this letter to be something we can all collectively agree on to send a strong message to the government. And I worry if we add these social issues to that letter, that's going to create a challenge in us all supporting it when it comes back to council. If we do, as mentioned and suggested by Councillor Cartmel, where we review the letter before final approval. So that's where my intention is coming from.
Okay, thank you. So please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the vote, please. Okay, that is carried. Okay, then you want to add part C now, Councillor Rutherford? Or I can suggest some language.
Yeah, I've got it here. That part
Okay.
C be added, the required provincial funding for infrastructure investment as advocated by Alberta municipalities.
We're just going to put that on the screen for you here, and then
I need a second.
Second.
Okay.
And then just to introduce, I agree
Yeah.
with Councillor Cartmel again, as we often aggressively agree on many things as well. I don't want this to be an issue of, this is an existing road that had existing problems, and I don't want to put this on that. But I think shoring up that the reason we're unable to keep up with growth, the reason we have so many trade-offs that we have to do is because we are receiving less infrastructure dollars, is the intention of this amendment. So I think we just, however that's worded, that is my intention as the mover, is that it's not putting it on this development per se, but recognizing to the provincial government that we want to be partners in economic development. We absolutely do. These are barriers that we're experiencing, and these are ways that you can help. So I think augmenting the letter from the mayor around some of the funding pieces that would help us is important. That's what the intent of, for my colleagues, that's what the intent is of this addition.
Okay. Councillor Cartmel, can you take, sorry, Councillor Cartmel, go ahead, please. Councillor Cartmel.
I'm not on for this, so I can take the chair, Mayor Sohi.
Okay, thank you. So quick question, Councillor Rutherford, you're not contemplating any contributions from the developer?
But my amendment is just to specifically related to, and I don't know why it's not saying it on the motion on the floor, but I said as per the advocacy from the Alberta municipalities. So my intent is just to use this as another opportunity to reinforce that advocacy on the infrastructure funding model.
Okay, but as we heard from administration, there might be some opportunities for developer to contribute to some of the access issues or other issues that they may identify at the development permit stage.
I would put that question to council, to administration, Mayor.
Yeah, like that. This does not. So over to Cam, maybe this addition does not preclude you from negotiating with developers more contributions as proportionate to their development, not on the table.
We would look at how a development permit application would be assessed, and any conditions would be associated with the development permit approval.
Got it. Okay, good.
And Mr. Mayor, Mike Gunther from Legal here. I would also just advise that that issue not be contemplated in as part of this motion. That be dealt with separately.
Got it. Okay. All right. I'll take the chair back. Councillor Wright, go ahead, please.
I was just going to ask, can we take off the word required, but I think if our legal counsel is recommending that we not have it at all, can you expand as to why?
Yes, just to clarify, Councillor, no concerns legally with what has been proposed here as Part C in terms of provincial funding advocacy as per Alberta municipalities. In terms of the actual developer funding, just some concerns that we want to maintain the independence of the development permit review process, and if the development officer assesses that there is a technical need for those upgrades, then it would be appropriate to put that on as a condition. But if council's directing at this point, we want that on, it might just take away from that independence, which we want to maintain.
Sorry, what might take away from the independence?
A council direction that this be included in the letter to AGLC.
Okay, so you are recommending against C?
No, to be
just
clear,
developer?
No concerns with C as we see it on the screen right now.
Okay.
Just not suggesting that we enhance it to address funding from the
developer.
developer.
Okay. I just wanted to get some clarity on that. But having it as required is all right?
Fine legally with that language, yes. As required provincial funding, that wording is fine.
Okay, thank you very much. Then I guess I don't have any questions for the mover. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Rice.
Thank you, Mayor Sohi. Yeah, the question to the mover, because the main motion talk about we reject this, that is our position is firm, and then if we reject this, and then is there anything, to me is logically a little bit confusing here. Maybe you can help me understand why we still request infrastructure investment if we already reject it. So that is why I'm a little bit confused. If we are in the mutual position, say we have those concerns, we need some of these concerns to be addressed to allow this happen, and then that's logically to me makes sense. But right now, if the main motion say rejected, and at the same time we request investment. So can you help me understand a little bit better on that?
Sure. So I think from my understanding of how this letter would be written, it would say our position and some of the reasoning why we are taking that position, being A, B, and C. So A, I don't have the main motion in front of me, was something. B was the licensing or the distribution of the licensing, and C is saying that there's broader concerns about infrastructure surrounding this. We recognize that's not an issue with this particular development, but something we want to raise to the province in general as an example of how it can hinder economic development, was the intent.
So I know I heard very clear from Mayor Sohi about our position on this, but I'm not 100% sure for the later how we address the concerns we have, because the outcome to address the concern and will support our city's economic development, increase tax base. What we request here is in alignment with that position. But if we say, oh, we reject it, and then what's the reason behind, the logical reason behind why we need to address those concerns if we reject it already there? So I think that door not provides a room for us to address those concerns. That's
Do
just.
you have a question? Because I have an answer to that.
Okay.
So I think just as the license, so yes, there's a tax uplift, was quoted as around $400,000. That would be potential from this casino. But as was mentioned, if we are getting less charities, getting less funding, we're going to have more requests to council. That's already addressed in B. But what's not addressed is that if we have to prioritize these roads, that tax uplift would actually take 15 to 20 years for us to realize based on the cost of the capital we'd have to invest for upgrading that road. And so that's why for me, it is a factor to consider in this.
So I support the factor itself. I just thought that logically it does not make sense to me. But I will agree with Councillor Cadmel and look at it later first and before I put my name on. Thank you for putting this.
Okay, thank you. So that concludes the questions on this. Now please vote to add part C.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. So we're back to the main motion. Any additional questions on the main motion?
I'm on the board to ask.
Speak? Or to, sorry, because Councillor Tang,
to ask question. Just to our intergovernmental folks, the gaming charitable model has been. Can you confirm whether the gaming charitable model is a advocacy priority for RMA and Alberta municipalities? I recall resolutions on both fronts.
Yeah, good morning, Council. I do recall resolutions as well. I can't speak off the top of my head in terms of what those resolutions spoke to in detail, but yes, I think I'm having similar recollection, and we can look into that right away.
Yeah, and I believe they both speak to wanting just greater equity between rural and urban. And if you can, I'll be curious if in 2 years any movement have been made on that front with the government.
Yeah, I am not aware of any specific changes that will be in line with what those resolutions would have said. But again, as I mentioned, we can look into the updates from at least AB Munis in terms of the status of those resolutions, and I can get back right away.
And also rural municipal association. I know they're not always on our radar, but I think recently they've been doing some advocacy as well. I wasn't aware of any movement. I just wanted to confirm with you. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Councillor Carmel, just from previous or just like a question on the main motion?
I have an amendment to offer.
Okay, please go ahead.
It is with the clerk.
We will put it up for you. One moment.
Thank you. So I will move that as follows. We replace write a letter with write a draft letter, and B, add and return to council for approval. Due date August 20th, next week.
Second.
Second by Councillor Rice. Okay, so we have more amendment on the floor. Any questions on it? Sorry, Councillor Cartmel, you want to introduce it?
Only just to my previous comments, I'd like to see the letter before offering my support of it.
Okay.
And I will appreciate anyone's reticence about drafting letters on the fly in a council meeting. I get that, but my apprehension overtakes that concern. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Tang, questions on the amendment?
Just to speak.
To speak, Councillor Jans, questions on the amendment?
To speak.
Okay, all right. I see no questions. We'll go start with speaking. Councillor Tang, go ahead, please.
I'm actually fine with this. I think the timeline, I believe, is still within our deadline to submit. So it is I'm okay with that decision point. Just to speak to, I think Councilor Carmel's point earlier about the impact of letter writing, as far as I know, our letter 2 years ago absolutely had an impact. So I think sometimes letters are effective means of communicating our needs. That's all.
Thank you. Councillor Jans?
I find this overly pedantic, and I think if we don't trust what letters are going to say, and we don't like how congruent they are with the motion, I think we should vote against them. I think having to bring back draft letters, I just look at all the staff time, the money, the effort, all of the senior and min time. We're in a council meeting. I think I just say vote against it if you don't like it.
Okay, Councillor Carmel to close.
Nothing more for me. Thank you.
Okay, so please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Okay. Now we have main motion. Any other amendments to the main motion? Seeing none, to speak to the main motion? Councillor Principe?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did have a question still about taxation. Can I still ask that question?
Okay, well then we are not speaking here, then we'll reverse that. So go ahead, Councillor Principe, question.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Sabo, I'm just trying to get an understanding with the tax uplift of $400,000. Would it be a tax uplift? Would it be revenue to the city, or would it be a redistribution of tax?
So thanks for that question, Councillor Principe. Whenever you have new construction that's taking place, and assuming right now this is a vacant lot and there's new construction taking place, that is tax uplift. So basically we'd be accounting for that in our growth calculations. And when we come forward and saying, here's what the new growth is, that growth would be inflated by whatever the construction value of this property is once it's fully completed. So yeah, there would be tax uplift. It's not just a redistribution.
Okay, great. Thank you for that clarification. All right, that's it for me, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Principe. Councillor Rutherford to speak.
Yes.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I'll be really brief. I appreciate the amendment from Councillor Carmel because I am a little bit lukewarm about the opposition, just given I think how it's written and the way it's written will impact whether I support or don't support. You know, my hope is that it's opposition to this specific project and the issues around this specific proposal as opposed to casinos or the casino being located in this location. So that's what I'm going to be looking to see when this letter comes back, to fully support an opposition position. So I just wanted to put that out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tang to close.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I absolutely respect a business for making business decisions that is, you know, important for their bottom line, and hence why I absolutely understand why the applicant will want to put forward the proposal to relocate. It's a business decision for them. However, there's a number of issues here, and I think since 2 years ago, I think the dynamic, in particular after pandemic, is far more, I would say, political and complex in this case. We recently heard from one regional municipality that their approach to their social issues is to send them to Edmonton. And I know that for a fact that other rural municipalities are doing the same. And one of the key issues here is the lack of social infrastructure. But the answer isn't to find another revenue stream for them by fueling another form of addiction. The answer is to fund these communities adequately, fund the social and charitable sector adequately. That has not happened. And the answer isn't to further divide between rural and urban communities. I think the City of Edmonton has put forward very sensible policy changes. Rural communities, Alberta municipalities have been putting forward the advocacy priorities to change the gaming model. That has not changed. You know, on the traffic piece, I was fine. I think 2 years ago when council sent the letter, it wasn't actually included in it because I recognize it's a very localized issue, and it would have been considered during the zoning process. But I think 2 years later, this infrastructure question that many players have been advocating for to the government, because municipalities in general have not been funded adequately to accommodate major developments like this one, I think that is fair to be on the table. And we haven't seen any changes on that front. I am fully aware of, the dynamics this adds to our intergovernmental and regional relationships. But I think what's different now is after 2 years, I have seen no progress on any of these fronts. And I just don't think that we should be supporting a project like this that comes at the neglect of this government. To municipalities, to Edmonton, I don't think it's fair for Edmontonians. And we can, review the draft letter, and I will want all my colleagues to be on board with that. Because I think overall, while there may be tax uplift, while there may be jobs created, similar to the last time, it will be a net loss for the city as a whole. Not so much for city, the corporation, but city, the community, and what we'll be experiencing. And I think we have to take that into consideration. There could be other uses on the site, absolutely, but I think that net loss of revenue, the net loss of, or I guess net gain of social issues and other economic issues, I think should be fairly considered. And that is why I firmly believe that this time we need to make our positions heard. I think we need to make this position stronger. And that's why I support this is as an opposition rather than simply neutral. Thank you.
Okay, please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Okay. Can someone move that we go in camera, please?
So moved.
Clerk, you got that, right?
Yes, we do. It will be to move in private under sections 21 and 24.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. We'll give you about a few minutes to make sure all the When we go public, and Councillor Stevenson, you want to move that change in the order?
You betcha. I will look to clerk to have that up on the screen, but I think I can wing it as well.
We will put it up on the screen for you. We are live, and the motion will be on the screen momentarily.
Great. So I'm happy to move that the orders of the day be changed to continue 15 minutes after the adjournment of EAC and end at 5 p.m.
Second.
We are missing 2 votes. We have all the votes. Mayor Sohi, you're on mute.
That is carried. Okay, so we are on recess now, right?
That is correct.
Okay.